Hello everyone, welcome back. So this is going to be a reading for 2026. Can you believe it's going to be 2026 in about 5 minutes? So what I've done is I have two readings on the table, or two spreads. One that corresponds to the energy of 2025, and then one that corresponds to 2026, so I can kind of juxtapose the two and see how this year is going to be different. And before I jump into the reading, I just want to share a download that I've been processing, which is that I keep hearing that 2026 is going to be the year of the monad. And if you're familiar with the monad is basically like if you took all seven of the astrological signs, right, the classic astrological ones, so that would be Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. And if you merged them all into one glyph or one sign, that would be the monad, right? So it's basically like the cohesive system versus the fractalized system. And I just keep hearing that this is going to be the year of the monad. So we'll see. Either which way, let's jump into it. So at the bottom of the deck for 2025, the year we're leaving, I have the Nine of Swords, which is really interesting because this has been the energy of 2025 of just, it's kind of like the energy of wanting everything to stop, right? When things are just so chaotic and so frustrating that you're like, oh my God, I just want life to just pause and stop and reboot. And can I go back? And it's the energy of coulda, shoulda, woulda, and it's a frustrating energy. And yeah, I would just say that that's an accurate energy for 2026 or 25, excuse me. Versus 26, which we're moving into, is the energy of the chariot, right? So fast movement, things finally moving forward, kind of like the opposite of this Nine of Swords energy, which is feeling stuck or stationary or out of options and not sure what to do, versus the chariot, which is like direct. The chariot knows where it's going, what it's doing, and it also kind of has a monadic energy, right? Because the chariot is number seven, the monad is the seven luminaries in one entity, and the chariot does really talk about making astrology work for you as opposed to against you, right? It's like the magician that's driving the chariot knows that he is not at the mercy of astrology, but astrology is just another tool that he can utilize to capture the momentum of or work with or yada yada yada. And with the hierophant behind it, it's like being given the divine blessing or the divine sanction to move forward. It almost makes me think of like if you've ever gone through a traffic stop, right, where like they corral all of the cars into one lane and stop them so they can inspect them. It's like every now and then they'll just let certain cars go and not stop. And that's what this is feeling like, right? Where it's like being given the green light to suddenly go from 0 to 60. And so, with the rest of the cards on the table, in the foundation of 25, we had the Five of Pentacles, and in the foundation of 26, we have the Knight of Pentacles, right? So, the Five of Pentacles is kind of like feeling like you're out of options, right? Like especially with the Nine of Swords, right? It's like it's an energy of feeling like you're shut out from either resources or options or not being sure where to go, feeling energetically homeless, right? I think that makes sense with the collective, considering how all of our belief systems and things like that have been breaking down at a rapid pace, right? It's like that can leave you feeling energetically homeless. I know I've had my own issues with even things like tarot and things like that in terms of my relationship to it changing and feeling like not knowing if it was going to be a part of my story moving forward and things like that, as opposed to the Knight of Pentacles, where we're starting the foundation of 26. It's like the Knight of Pentacles has a clearer, more tangible direction, right? Especially with the Chariot, right? It's like these energies are moving forward, but it's kind of like the Knight of Pentacles is very good at long-term prospecting, but that's because he has a square one to work with, right? It's very hard to plan for the future if you don't even really know where you stand right now, right? And I think that has been a collective theme probably over the last couple of years, of especially since 2020, right? When everything got upended in 2020. It's like, how do you plan for a future in a world where tomorrow is so uncertain, right? Versus right now, this would tell me that it's like you probably have something that you're anchored into in terms of your own direction, where it's like you just have a clearer sense of self or a clearer sense of purpose, or at least, again, like a square one of like what you can start on that's before you, that's at your disposal. And what's interesting with 25 is that, it started with this place of feeling energetically homeless, and then it walks into the Three of Pentacles, which usually talks about recognition, but there's almost a degree of surprise with it, right? So it's like suddenly getting this kind of recognition from something that you thought wasn't recognizing you. That moves into the Knight of Cups, which usually talks about having a clearer sense of purpose, right? Like you found your holy grail, or you found an aspect of identity that really works for you. And again, this is in 25, but then that starts moving into the Queen of Swords, which is kind of like, a much more jaded. It's like, as I'm saying that, my voice is like, no, we're not talking about a jaded energy. It's kind of like a no F's given kind of energy. It's like that's an energy that kicked in 2025, where it's almost like a type of fearlessness that kicks in because you're like, F it. What do I have to lose? And that makes sense, especially coming on the heels of the Nine of Swords, right? Because the Nine of Swords is a coulda, shoulda, woulda, but it's like the window of opportunity is still there, right? These swords on the wall are all action steps that you can take. And with the Queen of Swords in the central position for 25, it's like, again, finally hitting that effort point of just being like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do what I need to do, and not exactly not being afraid of the consequences, but again, it's like, what do I have to lose is what it felt like. And let me just pick these cards up. Oh, because I dropped my iced coffee. Balance is restored, okay, y'all. So the Queen of Swords is moving into the World card, right? Where it's finally like, with the World card, I'm seeing like her visibility, right? The fact that she's naked and exposed and vulnerable. And I think that that is the biggest the fear point when it comes to putting ourselves out there, right? Is the visibility and the judgment that comes with that, the scrutiny, the fact that we have to be seen by other observers in order to do what we want to do, or to put ourselves out there, right? But that's kind of like where the effort point is, right? Where it's like, well, maybe with the Queen of Swords, it's about no longer caring about the opinions of others, right? Because it's like that's coming on the heels of the Three of Pentacles in 2025, where it's like the Three of Pentacles talks about recognition, and the Knight of Cups is suddenly comfortable with that recognition, where it's like, oh, I kind of like this identity. It's not as scary as I thought it would be. That finally kicks into the effort mode of just wanting to pursue the thing that you want to pursue, finally going for it, right? Where it's like, I'm visualizing like an old-fashioned carousel, how there was the ring on the carousel that you had to grab, right? And it's almost like a fear of going out to grab the ring, because it's like, what if I fall off the horse and everybody laughs at me? And it's like the Queen of Swords is kind of like realizing that you don't care if these people laugh at you, because who are these people, right? It's like, if I get laughed at by a bunch of clowns, does that mean anything, right? And it's almost like it's giving wizard behind the curtain, right? Where you suddenly realize that it's like, oh, this is something that I'm going to negotiate with and care about, in terms of holding myself back and being concerned about their opinion, or it has that kind of energy. And the World card is moving into the Empress, right, which is feeling very fruitful. And then the final card, which is the Seven of Swords reversed, right? So the Seven of Swords usually talks about an energy of tiptoeing around things, right? Again, it's an energy of kind of cloaking and concealing and not wanting to be so visible and being afraid of being seen and having to sneak. And it's kind of like implying that you can go into 2026 loud, right? I think that's what's being encouraged here, right? Is that it's like the tiptoe phase is over and the universe wants you to make loud, stomping steps, right? Make your presence known. Do not try to obscure or conceal what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I don't mean, I mean that in terms of the things that you want to put out there, right? It's like whatever your plan is for yourself, that thing that you desire to create. It's like the visibility is an aspect of it, right? It's like you want it to be enjoyed by other people and shared with other people, whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? It doesn't have to be a business. It could just be an aspect of self or whatever it may be, right? But it's like this is, it has a loud and proud kind of energy, right? Where it's like unapologetically leaning into what it is that you desire, which makes sense with the Knight of Pentacles moving forward, right? That it's like if that was your 2025, then you probably do have a clear foundation that you want to build something upon, right? A square one where you want to start. And because of that, and because you might have a stronger sense of self, it's a lot easier to do the long-term planning and future forecasting and say, okay, well, this is what I want to build it into 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, whatever it may be, or even just a couple months down the line, right? Because that's challenging enough. And what's interesting is that on the heels of the Knight of Pentacles, we're moving into the Four of Cups. And the Four of Cups usually talks about recognizing that the role that you play in your social ecosystem is no longer serving you, right? That you've kind of outgrown a particular role, or you've done that thing to death and you're ready to elevate and move on. And it's interesting just because this Four of Cups is happening right beneath the Three of Pentacles in 2025, right? So the Three of Pentacles I was talking about was finally getting some recognition for something and realizing that it's not as scary as you thought it would be, right? And if anything, that the reception was a lot better than you thought it would be, or that it was a lot smoother, that there was no resistance, something like that, right? So it's warming you up to the idea of putting yourself out there, and with the Knight of Cups next, like stepping into that identity, right? So with the Four of Cups beneath that in 2026, it's kind of like saying, like, okay, I did that, but what aspects of my identity no longer serve me and are currently obsolete, right? So like the most obvious ones that we all deal with would be the victimhood mentality and things like that. But it's like, even, it's like, I want to say the mentality of smallness, right? Because if the Five of Pentacles was the foundational energy for 2025, the Five of Pentacles is a very small, shameful kind of energy, right? It's like these two homeless people don't walk into this church because they don't even think that they're worthy of stepping into that church, right? They're ashamed by the fact that, their clothes are tattered, maybe they don't smell good or whatever it is, right? So it's like they're ashamed to be in the presence of this greatness, right? Versus Three of Pentacles, right, is being warmly accepted into that and realizing that you do qualify, right? That it's like this shameful self-image that you had was not accurate, right? That instead you were actually perceived as worthy and great and beautiful and wonderful, right? So it's like this Four of Cups is kind of reevaluating the persona and the role that you play in 2026, where it's like maybe examining, like, where do I make myself small in order to accommodate other people and make them comfortable, and where, because also too, it's like transitioning from being like a background character to a main character in your story, right? Where it's like Your story is not about what you do for other people. That doesn't sound right. It's like the energy of being a boss versus an assistant. I know that that's like one way to look at it, but like the assistant mentality is like having an identity that's rooted in serving other people's manifestations and things like that, right? Versus having a mentality where you can put your plan and your concept first, right? But it's like in order to step into that, it's like you need to see yourself as the person that is executing this plan, right? It's like there's something about the energy of people that are able to kind of work up a crowd of people, that it's like those people that are capable of doing that, they have this confidence, right, that comes with them, which makes sense because the next card on the table is the King of Wands, which talks about the energy of confidence, but confidently holding and executing the vision, right? Where it's like if you have a game plan, okay, so I get it. It's like if you're in a smaller energy, right, and you have a game plan, it's very easy to get pushed over by bigger energies, right? Because they're going to be the dominant waveform. But if you walk in as the dominant waveform, right, as like, that big kind of energy that just slams their energy on the table and commands the room and says, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing and yada, 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 that it's like everything just kind of conforms to that, right? I'm thinking of, don't shoot the messenger, but I'm thinking of somebody like a Donald Trump, right? Where it's like he is relentless in the way that he operates, right? And I remember I was watching an interview, you've probably seen this clip of Barbara Corcoran from the Corcoran Group, who's a realtor, talking about working with Donald Trump back in the 90s or the 2000s, and saying that she'd never seen anybody that was able to sell the way that he was able to sell, because it was just so, again, relentless, right? Like he doesn't let you get a word in edgewise. He just keeps kind of like selling the vision and explaining why it's the greatest vision and the power of delusional optimism, right? And all of those things. And again, it's like, don't shoot the messenger. I know that he's a polarizing figure, but it's like, let's be real. The dude knows how to manifest like nobody's business, right? So what can we learn from that to apply to our own life? It's like you have to go in there thinking that you're not thinking, but knowing that your idea is the greatest idea, and you're not even interested in the peanut gallery or the comments or anything like this. It's like, this is what we are doing. And it's kind of the same idea as like if I'm thinking of it in like a business context, right? It's like you have to have that visual pitch, because it's not enough to just share the vision verbally and say, this is what I want to do, right? Because that leaves it up to the imagination of whoever it is that you're collaborating with. And when people put things through their own private imaginal filters, they can't help but see things differently, right? So that's why it's like you need to anchor whatever it is that you're building in 2026 into like a visual representation, right? Whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's a PowerPoint pitch deck, anything like that, even if it's just for yourself, right? For the mood board, for whatever. But it's like that sounds very businessy and very matrixy and 3D and low vibrational, but it is the same exact thing as doing a magical working, right? Building a business plan and a pitch deck and all of that is the same thing as a magical working. You're building your sigil, you're naming it, you're doing the different steps of the operation, you're affirming this will happen, then that will happen, then this will happen. It's the same thing as scripting out a manifestation, right? But just in a more quote unquote mundane, businessy kind of way, right? And there's power in that. There's power in translating the vision. And I've experienced this, I'm sure you've experienced this, where it's like you paint a painting of something and then that thing becomes a part of your reality, or you write a story and the story comes true, or you write a song and the song turns out to be prophetic, right? It's like there's so much power in taking the abstract vision, the wands, and then translating that into something concrete. And your energy this year, your identity. So you're going from the Queen of Swords last year to the Ace of Wands this year, which is effectively like saying, like, you are lightning in a bottle, right? It's like your energy right now is cuckoo cuckoo. I had recorded a reading yesterday that I didn't upload because I just didn't like the way it went. But not that it was a bad reading, but I just didn't think it was articulate or whatever it was. But what this reading was saying was that the system, right, like things outside of you, other observers outside of you, have recognized that you are, for lack of a better term, a nuclear power, right? So think about, like, the G8 or the G20 or the countries that quote unquote matter in terms of geopolitical relations. Every single one of those countries is a nuclear power. And that is the only reason why they have a seat at the table, because nobody's going to mess with the girl who's a nuclear power, right? And what this reading I was doing yesterday was saying was that it was like, people, places, and things, the system itself in your reality has recognized that you have become a nuclear power. Perhaps you always were a nuclear power. But what the system is unaware of, or these external observers are unaware of, or uncertain about, is they're not sure whether or not you know that you are a nuclear power. And what I mean by that is that it's like, there is no resistance, right? It's like you are the dominant waveform in your reality. So that would imply that you are not negotiating with anything. You are commanding and creating everything because, again, you are the dominant waveform. It's just the laws of metaphysics or whatever you want to call it. But like the best example, if I can think of an example, would be, imagine throwing a bunch of rocks into a pond, right? Each rock is going to make a splash, which then creates a waveform on the surface, right? And if you throw a bunch of rocks into that pond, it's going to create this chaotic surface with all of these waveforms. The largest rock that is thrown into that pond is going to create the largest splash and the largest waveform, which eventually becomes the dominant waveform that organizes the entire surface pattern of the water, right? So this is why the Masons always say, what is their expression? Order out of chaos or something like that. That it's like, if you're trying to go from one order to another order, first you have to go through a chaos phase where the old order breaks down and then the new order can be projected upon it, right? We are in a universal chaos phase right now, right? It's like literally everything and its mother is breaking down and the old guard is dead. The systems have fallen into complete chaos, and that is great. That is the best possible scenario for every single one of us as manifestors, because now we can project onto that, right? And that's the Wands and the King of Wands, right? Like the power of projecting the vision relentlessly, unapologetically, and with, you can call it the power of delusional optimism, right? Where it's like, I don't want to hear nothing about no pessimism. It's like, what is happening is happening. The universe is co-creating it with you, right? You are the anomaly. You are blessed and highly favored. Forget about other people. Whether or not they choose to identify as blessed and highly favored is their own issue. But you are the anomaly, right? And that is the only thing that we need to worry about, because I do think that sometimes we block or reject our own blessings because we think of it comparatively, where it's like, well, what about everybody else in the world? What about this, that, and the third? And it's like, radical self-responsibility, y'all. It's like everybody is playing the role that they want to play. It just is what it is. So play the role that you want to play. You are the anomaly, right? You are blessed and highly favored. The game is rigged in your favor, rigged in your favor. The universe, God, is doing everything to ensure your success, right? And yeah, so that's the energy that you're holding in 2026. You are a nuclear power. Nothing can stand up against you, right? And your will is the most powerful force in the entire universe, period. Where that's heading next, we have the Page of Wands heading into the Magician, heading into the Ten of Wands, right? So the Page of Wands, I'm just trying to see where it is underneath 2026. Well, how I was saying in 2026 with the Seven of Swords reversed, right? That this is about like a loud and proud kind of energy where you're just walking into the room and saying, I'm here, y'all, this is what I'm doing. Like, again, where it's just being, one, being your own biggest fan, right? But also just there's a fearlessness to the energy, right? So the the Page of Wands is talking about having a very bold, declarative way of like announcing that you are here, right? And that your thing is here and that it is alive and it is active and it has been released and I'm noticing just because this is showing up in the position of Venus, which usually talks about kind of like the flavor of energy that we are attracting, right? And because it's like, if you think of Venus, it's like the relationship between like the hummingbird and the flower, right? The flower is in the passive stance, right? The flower does not go out seeking the hummingbird. It pulls the hummingbird towards it. But the hummingbird is able to find it because the flower releases its scent, right? The scent is the thing that brings it towards it. So with this Page of Wands, it's like, it's kind of like the if you build it, they will come principle, right? But it's like, it's not just if you build it, they will come. If you market it, they will come, right? It's like you have to announce it as loudly as possible and not be afraid of that. But it's like, it's something about like the voice of creation, right? The idea that like the universe was created through sound, right? That God spoke the universe into existence, right? And that when we speak things out into the universe, especially when we speak things out to other observers, it's like the way that it moves through the collective neural network. It's like the other observers effectively help us co-create the manifestation, right? But it's also like, I'm thinking it's almost like a glamour spell kind of magic, but not exactly. But I'm thinking of like how people create the energy of hype, right? When they hype something up and they make it look important and they make it look special and they make it look like a big deal. And again, like building that hype machine that it's like, I'm trying to think of like a better word for that, right? But like you're selling something as great, right? And I think the reason why this is honestly coming through for this collective is because I do think that we have trouble hyping ourselves up or hyping up whatever it is that we want to do. And one of the reasons why I think we have so much trouble with that is because we live in a world filled with bullshit hype, right? Where it's all of these influencers that are just stupid, that hype up these things that are meaningless and pointless, and they're selling snake oil and all of that, right? But it's like, you're not selling snake oil, right? It's like you are absolutely something that should be hyped up, right? And maybe you guys can empathize with this, but it's like, I know that I could hype up anybody outside of myself, right? I could be the best PR agent in the history of history, but hyping up myself, that's a challenge, right? But if I step outside of myself and like view myself in the third person and be like, if I walked into my office, if I walked into my PR agency and said I need some PR, how would I market me? It's like that, I think, is one of the tricks to this. And the next energy that's coming up on the table is the Magician card, which happens to be in the position of Mercury, right? So that's telling me that Mercury is going to be like one of the big players energetically in 2026, but specifically I'm thinking in terms of like speed. It's like there's a lot of speed in 2026 because I have the Chariot at the bottom of the deck, right? So that's the fastest card in the deck, as opposed to the Nine of Swords last year, right? Which is a stagnant, unmoving energy, right? So we go from stagnant to the fastest card in the deck. And then the biggest card on the table for 26 is the Magician, right? Which it's like I have the magician and the wands, which are also incredibly fast because they're fire, right? And it, I almost want to come back to this magician card because it's like there's something that I'm missing about it, and it's bothering me. But the final card on the table is the Ten of Wands, and the Ten of Wands usually talks to me about the energy of the elevator pitch, where it's kind of like consolidating what it is that you're doing into its most refined form, but also being mindful of the peanut gallery, right? Where, again, like going back to the idea of creating the pitch for whatever it is that you're trying to create. It's like one place where I think that we get blocked up is we do everything within our power to try to accommodate and please those that are impossible to please, right? So it's like if you're, the example is like some people's idea of paradise is a dance party, some people's idea of paradise is a tea party, right? It's like if your idea of paradise is a dance party, then you can't plan a dance party that you're marketing to the tea party people, right? Because the tea party people don't want to go to a dance party. But all you're going to do is ruin the energy of the dance party and ruin it for anybody that would want to go to that because you're trying to accommodate people that don't like it, right? So it almost, but then the other side of it is like, a lot of the people that watch this channel, I know that a lot of you guys are healers that have your own modality, right? And we all have like a particular thing that we lean into, right? So I have my tarot, you might have astrology, other people might have singing bowls or whatever. And we've all been exposed to the peanut gallery that tells us to incorporate other modalities, right? Where it's like, I want to do this, but that's really popular, so maybe I should incorporate that, or I should learn this before I do that. And it's like, are you doing that because you want to do that, or are you doing that because you feel this illusion of obligation that you need to incorporate other people into your thing, right? It's like that's one of the reasons why I think society is so broken down right now, is because we're trying to make these things for everybody, and there's no such thing as something for everybody, right? It is absolutely okay to have your tribe that you cater to exclusively, whatever it is that that looks like, right? So it's like, if you want to have a jazz party, right? It's like there's some people that do not like, I don't like jazz. I won't be at that party, I'll tell you that much. But that would, if you went out of your way to accommodate me and decided to play Britney Spears at the jazz party, well, then you're going to ruin it for all of the jazz people, right? So it's like, don't try to accommodate me. Try to accommodate yourself exclusively, right? And that's it. It's like the illusion of creating a safe space for everybody. It just doesn't work, right? It's like the wolves and the sheep do not hang out together. They have their own ecosystems. It is what it is. But if they have their own ecosystems, then everybody's at peace, right? So with taking that back to the magician, it's like what the magician wants to talk about for 2026 is the power of living intentionally, right? Because the magician is all about the designation of meaning towards resources, right? Where it's like tarot cards do not have meaning until you assign meaning to it, right? That's why it's like every reader on YouTube can have a different association with the chariot, but when it hits their table, it makes sense within the context of the reading because all that matters is what this card means to the individual that's pulling the card, right? And it's the same thing with everything in our reality, right? It's like there's no meaning on anything until we assign meaning to it, right? So the magician is living very intentionally and living this almost like ritualized kind of life where, every time they take out the trash, that is a ritual and they're assigning meaning to it. Every time they brush their teeth, every time they cook a soup, every time they go on their walk to work. It's like all of those things can have ritualized meaning assigned to it, or we could just, let it be random and see how that works out for us. But the magician is acting very intentionally and and ritualizing everything that he's engaging with and recognizing that everything is magic, for lack of a better term, right? Going back to the idea of of the business pitch deck or the business idea, right? It's like all of those things are magic. Forming an LLC is magic. It's the same idea as creating a homunculus or a Frankenstein, right? It's like that's what an LLC is, quite literally, or you know, a vision board versus a pitch deck, a manifestation script versus a business plan, a talisman versus a logo. All of these things are the exact same thing. The only difference is that meaning has been assigned to one and not the other, right? So it's like, why not incorporate all of these things into your reality? And even going back to like the energy of the Queen of Swords that came up this year with like the F it energy of like F it, I'm just going to do it. It's like recognizing that magic is your right. Magic is your right. And we are in a constant ritual from the moment we are born and take our first breath till the moment we take our last breath. And every single thing is energetic displacement, right? That's all magic is the quote unquote manipulation of energy, assigning meaning to actions, right? So again, when I take out the trash, I assign meaning to it that I'm getting rid of this program or whatever. That's why it's like we technically don't need to sit down and just do these ceremonial rituals, because every aspect of our life is the ceremonial ritual, right? But I do think that we're afraid sometimes of engaging with that because we don't know if we're supposed to or if we're allowed to or if we're whatever. But it's like you're already doing it. It's just that the energy is kind of all over the place because we're not really constricting the waveform, right? And that's kind of like going back to recognizing that you're a nuclear power, right? It's like you're already having this massive impact, but it might be kind of blind, right? We might be kind of bull in the china shopping this, if that makes sense, right? But it's like the good news, I guess, just to wrap it all back up, is that again, it seems like the reality is breaking down and turning into a chaos environment. And that is the best case scenario for those of us that would like to experience a new type of order, right? Because a new order is just a new algorithm, it's a new routine, right? So if you're unhappy with your loop, change your routine, right? Because your loop and your routine are the same. If you do the same thing every single day, week in, week out, and you're experiencing the same life over and over and over and over again and nothing's changing, you can also change the routine, right? Because the routine is the daily ritual. The daily ritual is the thing that creates reality. So if you're unhappy with the reality, change the ritual, right? We're already doing the ritual. That's it. It's just that we've been told that, you know, that's naughty, right? You're not allowed to play with the sigils. You're not allowed to play with the entities. You're not allowed to play with this. It's like, we're already doing it. We are already doing it. So that's what I got for y'all. If anybody is interested in their own 2026 reading, hit me up and we'll find out what's going on for you. I love to do tarot readings for you guys, especially because you guys actually get it. I have to say, there is such a difference between the tarot readings that I get through YouTube and the tarot readings that I get through the 3D real world, right? Because those are typically like tourists that pass through my town. And for the most part, they're just living a very different life than most of us. But geez Louise, I mean, I feel, yeah, I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. I'm sorry. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Have a beautiful 2026. And I'll see you at the next one. Bye.